Good afternoon, my fellow Jeti users, and welcome to an absolutely sweltering workshop. One of the hottest days in Britain, as you can see from the temperature sensor readings on my transmitter. It's rather hot in the workshop, and it's not much cooler outside. Now then, this video is due to a request by John McNamara of jetstream.co.uk. And John is a Jeti dealer. In fact, I bought my first DS16 from John, so you can thank him for me having Jeti in the first place. Now, the request is for one of his customers who's got a model such as the CARF Corsair, which has operating cowl flaps. Now, on the full size, these cowl flaps would probably be thermostatically controlled, so that the cowl flaps open fully when the engine's hot to try and get maximum airflow blown through, such as, if they've got extended taxiing around on the ground waiting to take off. And as the engine heats up, the cowl flaps will close to both minimize the drag of the aircraft, but to also minimize the airflow going through to keep the engine at its optimum temperature. Can we do that on large models with cowl flaps? Well, yes, we can. And to do that, we are going to use something that John has lent me to make this video. One of the little Jeti temperature sensors. This happens to be the MT300, which will go up to 300 degrees Celsius. I believe there's also a 125, which will go up to 125. And now this thing, they have two temperature sensing loops. Here's one of them, loop A, and there's the other one, loop B. We're going to use loop A, but I've put both of them
Inactivity alarm.
Both of them up on screen for you to see. And well, they must be fairly well calibrated because they're both saying the same thing, which is always nice. So how do we get this to operate the cowl flap servo for you? Well, I'm going to make some assumptions here that you don't want it just automatic. You would like some manual control of it as well. So what I'll get round to showing is switching between manual and automatic. But just for the moment, I'll show you a purely automatic so that you can see that working, and then we'll get into how to make it switch between manual and automatic. Okay, so we've got our basic model set up, and we're going to need a couple of functions here. The cowl flap function, which I have assigned to rotary control P8 for when I want manual control. Yep. And I've just shortened it CF, which I have allocated to telemetry control 1. So you go in here, you say plus, scroll down, telemetry control 1, which, as you can see, I've already created. Doesn't matter if it's blank and you then go ahead and create it later. It'll all still work. Say OK to that. Okay, now in servo assignment, if you add it in manually, only add in cowl flap, which is running off P8 or whatever lever you're using. Just for the moment, I've added in the CF servo. We don't need it. The reason we need that CF function is to allow us to do mixing later on, because Jeti only allows you to mix functions, not telemetry control. So we have CF function, which is actually run by the telemetry control, and so CF function we can do mixing with. So you do not need a servo assigned to CF, but I have done it just to show you. At the moment, this servo here is plugged into channel 6. Okay. And let's then look at the telemetry control itself. Okay, telemetry control, I've given it a little label, CF, I've enabled it. I've come down, I've chosen my sensor, which is sensor A. And the type of control, it'll default to switch when you create this, but you want to change it to proportional. Now, down here, the range, this is the important bit. This is the bottom temperature, and this is the top temperature. Nothing's going to happen if the temperature is below 50. Yeah, and at that point, the telemetry control will start activating, and it'll rise to its maximum at 90 in this case. So now you would choose the values that suit you. And John suggests in this particular instance, you would be wanting to measure the air temperature within the cowling rather than the cylinder head temperature itself, but it's up to you. And what these temperatures would be is up to you. In other words, you want the cowl flaps fully closed at low temperature until what temperature? I've just chosen 50 because these are sort of temperatures I can get sensibly out of my heat gun without burning my fingers. But you might say, well, I want the cowl flaps closed until it's 80, 90, 100. And then I want them fully open by whatever temperature. Yeah. So I've just chosen below 50, they'll be, the servo will fully close them. Doesn't matter what temperature you are below 50, it's going to be fully closed. And then doesn't matter what temperature above 90, they're going to be fully open. But it's between 50 and 90, the servo will operate and do its job. I would suggest you set the default from its normal value of 0 down to -100. That will pull the system down here in the event that there's a telemetry dropout. If you get a telemetry dropout just for a second or two, what will happen is the system says, I don't know what to do. And so it might go and do something to the cowl flaps that you don't want. It's like open them wide when you're belting along in a fast pass, and you don't want that. By setting the default to -100, what it will say is, oh, I've lost telemetry for a moment. I'll set it at -100, i.e. that end of the range. Keep your cowl flaps closed as if the engine's nice and cool. Okay, so that sets up your telemetry control, which is, as you may remember, running function CF. Yeah? Okay. Now, temporarily, as I said, I've just plugged a servo into, or created a servo assignment for it. I will now take loop A, here we are, and my heat gun. Now we'll watch the temperature rise here, and when it gets to, 50, the servo should start to rotate. And when we get to 90, it should be at full rotation, and then we'll switch off and let it cool down and watch the servo come back. It is going to be quite clunky and jerky because I'm not getting a smooth temperature increase using the heat gun. It seems to warm it up and cool it down at the same time. So it gets to a certain temperature, doesn't get any hotter. I take the heat gun away and it suddenly shoots up in temperature. But here it goes. Watch the sensor A temperature rise and the servo move. There's the temperature going up. Once it goes above 50, this servo will move. There we go. If we can get it up to 90, we'll get the servo going all the way. I'm struggling to get the temperature up high enough, but you get the idea. So I'll switch that off. As you can see, now that the loop is cooling down, the servo's moving back. Whoopie-doo. Okay, let's get on with the programming. I'll just pop in here and just show you servo assignment. I don't need CF assigned anymore. So I'll switch that to off, and I will plug my servo now into cowl flap. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this switch here as a switch between manual and automatic. Okay, and I'm going to use rotary knob P8 as we saw in the function assignment to control it. So we go into fine tuning, down to dual rate expo, down to cowl flap, and I'm going to assign the switch. There we are, switch SC on, off. And so that is manual mode there, and that's automatic mode. In the automatic mode, I've switched the rate to 0%. In the manual mode, the rate's 100%. And if you look at the servo as I rotate to P8 now, You see we've got control of the servo. If I go to automatic mode, P8's not doing anything. Can't affect it. Okay, so now what we do is mix from cowl flap to, or rather we mix from CF, our empty function, which is run by the telemetry control, to cowl flap. Set the master value to 100% and set the switch to be our manual or auto mode, so that it's on in the auto mode. And that's it. It will now do the job. So, manual mode. Here we go. And auto mode. It's gone to the off position. Warm up the sensor again. Watch the servo go. There it goes. Now it's cooling down. Comes back, but if I switch back to manual mode, I've instantly got my manual mode. And in case you're wondering why these sensors are now going out of sync, it's because circuit B was sitting in the sunshine there. Okay, and that's it. And that's how you can have automatic temperature control of your cowl flaps, or indeed an automated telemetry control from any type of sensor over some sort of function.